Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Sarah.
And we have just watched the whole of 13 Reasons Why Season 2.
On a very sunny weekend.
When everyone else was outside having fun or, I don't know, getting married, like Harry and Meghan.
What a wedding. But we wanted to watch 13 Reasons Why so that we could start talking about the show pretty much as soon as possible.
Yeah, because 13 Reasons Why is a show that needs to be talked about. There are some tough issues and tough scenes in Season 2, and we just want to talk about them and also find out what you guys think.
So we're going to go through what we think Season 2 gets right.
And where arguably it goes wrong.
Like the show, some of what we talk about won't be easy to take in. So if you think you might be affected by any of the issues raised, you can always visit 13reasonswhy.info for details about all of the support services that are available to you.
So, let's start with what Season 2 gets right. I'm going to go trial.
Yes, I think the trial is this brilliant narrative device. Of course, every episode features a new person's testimony being given in the trial where Hannah's parents are taking the high school to court for what they feel was negligence and causing their daughter's death, basically.
And so, just like in Season 1, where you have Hannah's tapes, each tape is a new episode, in Season 2, every episode becomes a new character's testimony, and I think that really works well in kind of taking you through, keeping the momentum going, but also sort of making you really think quite hard about what's going on and who's telling what story, really.
Yeah, and also looking at what happened in Season 1, taking those kind of 13 reasons, those 13 stories that we took as gospel from Hannah, as Hannah's truth, and looking at really a very different side to them, a very different truth that comes from some other people. And I think how realistic the outcome of those trials is key to 13 Reasons Why. I guess it's authenticity. I mean, we see Bryce just go and get probation because he has the upstanding members of the community who'll get behind him. He has the family with the money, you know, he has the reputation as the good guy sports star, and the boys who were just messing about and didn't know any better. But then you see Justin, who tried to do the right thing ultimately, who tried to help Jessica, who tried to redeem himself in a way, end up stuck for months inside because he has the bad background, he has the addiction, he hasn't got anybody to go to, and he suffers as a result.
Yeah. I mean, I think let's then go to the second thing that I think Season 2 gets really right, and that's Jessica's story. I mean, just the whole thing, it just feels so real. Every time Alicia Bowe is on camera, like the whole thing just sort of, you just take a breath and you think, oh wow, okay, we're in really good drama territory here, sort of thing. I mean, especially early on. I know, I know you've sort of really liked it as well. But when Jessica is seeing Bryce across the canteen or in the corridor, and you can just see her crumple at every moment, and it just makes it feel really real, quite heartrending, and also a really important step forward from Season 1. Really.
Completely, and as a woman watching it, it made me question my own approach to people who may have been through a similar ordeal to Jessica. I would have always considered myself very with it, very, you know, on the money in terms of how we should approach these kinds of things. But watching Jessica tell Clay, you know, this is my story to tell. This is not yours. You don't get to decide when I tell it. Was a lesson for me as well. It was a lesson for me as like, why wouldn't you speak out? Why wouldn't you say something? You know, and I think we particularly see it with Chloe towards a later stage of the season as well, when Chloe's almost prepared to come forward, but when she's faced with Bryce in that courtroom, her story completely changes. And I was angry at her, and I was like, whoa, why would you do that? But when I think back and I look at Jessica, maybe my reaction to Chloe should have been more nuanced as well. It raises some really good questions.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, everybody watching this, everybody watching the show will have different reactions to it, and we'd love to hear it from you. But I think at this point, if Netflix's aim with 13 Reasons Why is to start people talking, then clearly it's succeeded with Jessica's story, because I think, you know, it just makes it so much more real, so much more human, and that's part of Alicia's story as an actress as well, and I think that's really impressive.
And I think it's part of one of the third thing that we really liked about this series was the attempt at more responsible storytelling in a way. To kind of give an example of that, we see Alex, for example. Tyler tells Alex that he has a collection of photographs of when Alex was in a coma in hospital. And previously, James, I know you might say we could possibly have been shown these images.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of an example of how it's season 2 does things slightly differently. So instead of us seeing the photos of Alex, all we do is we just focus with the camera on his face, on his reaction, and that's enough. And I think more generally, I think, you know, it sort of starts to open up the questions that all the criticisms from season 1. I mean, you know, how much should we be talking about these issues? How much should we be depicting them? And by and large, apart from maybe one scene, which we're going to talk about later, that it succeeds.
I think you're right. I think the trial also puts the show on trial itself. Like you said, the questions are raised throughout. Hannah has to talk to Clay about why she did what she did. You know, was it about revenge? Does it glamorise it? You know, all those questions were raised by the show itself. And I think that was very important and quite brave of them to do, to kind of respond to the criticisms that had been levelled at them the first season.
Yeah, definitely. However, having said that, we are going to now have to deal with some of the points that we think doesn't quite work. And I think probably there's no better place to start than Tyler's scene in that final episode.
I found this very difficult to watch. Now, obviously, episode 13 was very heavily signposted that there was going to be something graphic happening within. It was going to be a scene of sexual assault. And yet, I still was not ready for what came. So Tyler was in a bathroom. He was sexually assaulted with a foreign object by Monty, one of the jock characters who we've seen throughout season 1 and season 2, who decided to take his revenge on Tyler for what he believed was destroying the baseball team's season. It didn't hold back. It very graphically portrayed what happened. It very graphically portrayed the aftermath. I'm 28 years old. I watch a lot of television. I've seen a lot of scenes of this nature depicted, and I found this one particularly hard to take. I think it's great that we discuss this issue, that this happens to people. I'm not entirely sure that that issue was best serviced by the way it was done.
So here's my take on it. Netflix says that it wants to encourage a discussion about male sexual assault, something that's rarely shown on TV. However, if you are encouraging a discussion, then you need to give that story room to breathe. This came at the very end of the series, just when everything else looked like it was coming to a reconciliation. And if you're being unkind to the series, it felt like it was just used as a plot device to push Tyler over the edge. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, because then within 15 minutes, we're at that climax scene with Tyler turning up to the school dance with an arsenal of weapons. I mean, did we really need that final push, that final scene? I don't know.
We'll throw that question out to you.
Let's move on to something else that I know we both have had a little bit of an issue with, and that is Hannah's appearance in 13 Reasons Why Season 2. So my issue here, Hannah's ghost. I mean, I still don't know how we actually talk about it, you know, but basically throughout the series, Clay sees Hannah. He converses with her, he talks through issues about her, he talks about her suicide, and I felt that making her so present, so alive in the series, just goes against everything else that they were trying to talk about in the series, about it being, about suicide being a final decision, about a final act that you cannot come back from.
It jarred a bit for me. I felt as though the show was answering so many of the criticisms that had been levelled at it. But like you say, one of the big things that people talked about, and I quite agreed with in a way when we came to season 1, was that, you know, when someone takes their life, it is final, and they don't have a voice after they die. And I'm not sure if by almost giving Hannah this kind of, I don't want to say manic pixie dream girl kind of thing, but kind of Clay's dream fantasy girl talking to him in his head, I don't know that best served to answer that question in quite a responsible way. I
know why they did it, because with a character like Clay, who is very introverted, very anxious, you need something to bring him out of himself. You need, because he is a really interesting character, you need something to sort of have him see inside his head, as it were. But to see Hannah, that doesn't feel like the right answer to it. You could still have Catherine Langford, who plays Hannah in the season, by you know, having her in more flashback scenes. I think the one with Mr. Porter towards the end, where he imagines what could have been with his final meeting with her, and he plays those out through his head. I think that's brilliant. That's genius. Like it's really powerful storytelling.
I think Hannah is at her most powerful in those flashback scenes, where we're being shown this other side of her. We're being encouraged to question how we feel about her, but she's also showing that she is a normal girl who had a normal life and still didn't deserve what happened to her. And I think that they would have served Hannah best by doing more of that rather than having this kind of dream scenario.
I think you're completely right. Let's get to the final point that we have with season 2, and that is the Polaroids.
Yes, so we know Brian Yorkie had always talked about how in season 2 there'd be no more tapes, but there would be some new kind of retro kind of technology that would be used for the students to work through, and this time around it was Polaroids. And Clay was given a series of Polaroids by a mysterious person from school, who we later learned was Zach, detailing what had gone on in the clubhouse, which was this building behind the baseball field where the jocks essentially partied and took girls, and as we learned, sexually assaulted them while they were unconscious and took pictures of it.
And whilst that story is interesting, and it points to the fact that it's not just Jessica's story, it's not just Hannah's story, this happens throughout the high school. I felt like the mystery element of it, it didn't seem like it was necessary. We already had the kind of the facts of the trial, which we talked about before, about having, you know, each character, each testimony. This felt like it was kind of trying to do the same thing, but not as well. Like, you know, Clay gets a Polaroid and it's like, oh, right, okay, I need to find out what's happening. Why?
To me, right, and I could be wrong here, it felt like a Scooby-Doo mystery tacked on to an otherwise quite powerful drama.
Yeah, it felt like a plot device. Again, like, you know, it wasn't something that was making us feel more involved with the story. It didn't make me feel like I was sort of learning something about the high school experience. But as I say, that's just our take on it. This 13 Reasons Why encourages this kind of debate, and basically it wouldn't be an effective show unless we were talking about it.
Completely.
Really.
I mean, if you have any thoughts or opinions, don't be afraid to share them in the comments below, or to get in touch with us on Twitter or on Facebook. We're at Radio Times.
And if you want us to keep talking about this, then we can definitely do some follow-up videos talking about your comments, what you have to say about the show, because, as I say, if we're not talking about it, then what's the point of the show?
And we should say that if you do want to speak to a trained professional or somebody who can help you with any of the issues that were raised if they affected you, please do head to 13reasonswhy.info. You'll be able to scroll to find the country you're watching this video from, and you'll get a full list of the support services available to you. Thanks for watching. That's it from us.
Thanks so much. And if you have anything else that you want to talk about, go to radiotimes.com/Netflix.